So when I watched the first episode of The War Between the Land and the Sea, I gave it a mostly critical review, with occasional damning with faint praise. But when I watched the second episode, my breath was completely taken away. Because it turns out I wasn't nearly harsh enough. My God, this is perhaps the worst television I have watched in the last 5 years. And I'm not just saying that because it's woke, even though it is. It's just bad writing. It's bad dialogue. The characters should not say these things. And I was complaining about this before we even got to the anti-humanity, are we killing the planet stuff. Believe you me. Believe you me. So, right off the bat, we get to this scene with Russell Tovey, aka Barclay, telling Kate Lethbridge Stewart the exact same thing we learned about him last week, which is that he's just a bumbling, relatable, ordinary guy. He's just the most mundane person. He's just the most mundane Chungus individual. And if that didn't quite drive the point home, he repeats the same self-description in his first scene with the Sea Devil in the same conference room where we left off last episode. Did I say last week earlier? I meant episode. I bloody wish it was last week. I'd have a bigger gap between reviewing them. Once again, the Sea Devils use the over-engineered reverse water slide to enter the conference room. Even though they've shown themselves quite capable of breathing in air, it's seemingly just used so they can make a dramatic entrance. And also allows a few more Sea Devils to just float there in the background. Menacingly. They're here perhaps because this is going to be plot relevant later on. Unit members notice in video footage of these negotiations that the Sea Devils all breathe in unison, including the ones in the water, inferring that they have some kind of hive mind. But if they're in the water, why are they breathing? This show makes no sense. But hey, at least the characters are good, right? Well, about that, there's something about Barclay's over-the-top sense of normalcy that kind of reminds me of how superheroes are characterized in the first 15 minutes of their movie, right before they get their powers and become the very opposite of normal. It's there to create a contrast. You either have to make a character extraordinary or put them in an extraordinary situation, and 2 episodes in, this show hasn't done enough of either. I know a lot of people compare him to Arthur Dent, but Hitchhiker's Guide gets away with it because it's a parody. And even Doctor Who companions have one thing special about them, even in their first episodes, which is their curiosity to travel with the Doctor. And speaking of the Doctor, Kate even compares Barclay to the Doctor because he's the only one in the room who doesn't sound like a soulless corporate automaton. Low fucking bar, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The main Sea Devil and presumed love interest is, well, her name is a demonic screed, so for our purposes she's called Salt. Which doesn't half remind me of when Russell Davies said that he'd name a Doctor Who companion Petrol, and everyone thought that was the worst, cringiest idea ever. She does not have a coherent reason for wanting to talk to an ordinary person instead of an official who knows what he's talking about, beyond just last episode he gave a gesture of goodwill to an empty room, so if he's the only human who's been deferent towards them, well then they clearly haven't met many humans. And it's quite the presumption on their part to think that he is. He could be horrible. Nor has he given her any reason at this point to have the hots for him. Need I remind you that other members of UNIT went out their way to communicate in the Sea Devil's own language? Yet in the same episode, sorry, this is going back to episode 1 because I'm realizing how much this annoyed me. In the same episode, humanity is scorned for not learning the Sea Devil's language.
Did we learn their language? No, we did not.
What, were we just supposed to speak it in the same way that the Sea Devils speak English? I don't think we could anatomically, I don't think our throats have parts that make those noises. Although stay tuned to the end of the video if you want to hear me try. The Sea Devils, or at least the only one who speaks in this episode, aren't suspected of having any hidden motive for wanting to talk only to Barclay. Unit just seem to go along with it, despite their attempts to do business as usual throughout the process. Yet no one so much as wonders out loud whether it's some underhanded negotiating tactic on the part of the Sea Devils. Which it is. You don't ask in negotiations to talk to some patsy on the other side who supports your cause, if not as an underhanded negotiating tactic. And Unit looks stupid for not even suspecting this. And then after he's chosen to be the one and official ambassador on whom the entire negotiations depend, he for some reason worries and whimpers about how Unit are going to kill him and spills some haha so relatable anecdote about how he fumbles a proposal. This guy has less testosterone than a wet soapy flannel. It's secondhand embarrassment just to watch him. And then we have such gems of characterization from Kate Lethbridge Stewart, such as, "I've spent my whole life fighting for this planet. Now with your help, I can build a better world for everyone." A more breathtaking sentence could not have been uttered. And who could forget the immortal words of, "Now your life changes," which is a subtle allusion about how now Barclay's life is going to change. And then there is that iconic scene in which she says, "We're putting an enormous amount of pressure on one man. I hope he's up to it." There is some real subtle characterization woven into every word of, for God's sake! You can't just have your characters announce how they feel. That makes me feel angry. And then, as if she couldn't get any more brain-meltingly stupid, she says that she's seen ordinary people achieve extraordinary things, but only when traveling with the Doctor. Kate Lethbridge Stewart, the head of Unit, says this. It really undermines her confidence in her own organization, because I've seen them. They do come across like ordinary people in this episode, so she must have meant that they haven't achieved extraordinary things. And at this point, I would believe her. But no, it's clear that she just said the line about ordinary people and extraordinary things to remind us for the billionth time that Barclay is an ordinary person. And you know what pisses me off most about when a show dumbs down and spells out its themes like this? It's not even the dumbing down, it's that no one talks like this. She wouldn't say the things she's saying to the person she's saying them to. And it becomes painfully obvious that this is not how these events would happen, if indeed they actually happened. The suspension of disbelief has drowned in an ocean of excrement. There is another scene with Barclay and his absolute harpy of an ex-wife where she reminds us yet again that he's an ordinary person, this time with an anecdote about him fumbling a wedding speech. His own, by the way. Yeah, that the mentions of his wedding speech and his proposal within about 15 minutes of each other kind of seems like one of those things that you put in the first draft of a script intending to change at least one of them later, because both of them together kind of seems a bit like you're reusing the same idea, but they never bothered to change it because they never progressed past the first draft. So we get to the first scene of negotiations. Barclay is nervous beforehand because he doesn't know what he's going to say. Kate reassures him that he'll have a script prepared. I want you to bear this in mind, because the very first thing he does when he starts talking to Salt is to go off script. Unit staff, Kate in particular, berate him through his earpiece, but he just continues to do his own thing, because all of a sudden he's not nervous at all when the plot requires him to be the moral center of the show, and to repeat the writer's opinions. In an epic speech, of course. And the speech he gives is full of Guardian reader dross about how humans are stupid and irresponsible. Rich people get paid bonuses. But it's also ordinary people's fault for, I don't know, not protesting outside a sewage works. People are addicted to their smartphones, but the kids are amazing and they're so much better than us. Honestly, the tendency of these older liberal types to fall at the feet of teenagers and to think that they've all figured it out, man, when they're really just reflecting their own propaganda back to them in concentrated form because they don't have BS detectors, is really quite sickening. And the writer of this episode, Pete McTeague, know that name, learn to hate it. He wanted so much to make sure that you in the audience wanted to know that these opinions are correct that he made sure that Salt said to Barkley after the speech that you're my new favorite human. But before Russell Tovey can ejaculate the truth onto her wet body, she has to subject him to this weird humiliation ritual where she demands a glass of water from the River Thames and then insists that he drink it. You know, to make a point about how much we ruined the planet. Now, the glass of water that Unit procures is so brown that it looks as though it may be tea. But if you know the first thing about rivers, you'll know that they're not actually that color. Well, first of all, the brown that you see is mostly from sediment, which is more often than not completely natural. And second, the river only looks to be that strongly colored because you're looking through several meters of water, whereas a glass of water is only a few centimeters wide. Most of the light passes through unperturbed. The River Thames is of course polluted, but it's a lot better than it used to be. And if you compare that to a much more polluted river, the Ganges, you'd see that even the bottled up samples of Ganges water aren't actually opaque. They're maybe a little bit cloudy, but that's it. And believe you me, this holy water is not remotely safe to drink. It's full of the germs found in human shit. But it wouldn't actually look like diarrhea. The only way you'd get a sample of river water that looks like this is if you accidentally, on purpose, scooped up a bit of dirt from the bottom as well. And rivers contain dirt. If you didn't already know that, I don't know what to tell you. So the result of this extremely one-sided negotiation is that governments around the world must radically accelerate their environmental policy, just as the Green Party would have them do. It's even name-dropped as such, the Greens, capital letter, I read the subtitles. If this isn't the BBC endorsing a party, I don't know what is. Then we have another scene in the hotel room where the ex-wife reminds us yet again that Barkley is an ordinary person who hasn't been passionate about anything since Christmas 2010. Now at this point he is uncharacteristically full of energy after what he views as a successful negotiation, one in which he admits to basically everything that Salt was accusing humanity of. Well done, by the way. But of course, the main purpose of this scene is to establish Barkley didn't do all of that himself. He actually got his moral fiber from his teenage daughter and her friends, thus establishing that the real moral center of the show is not him really. It's just everything he learned from a mixed-race black non-binary girl called Kirby. He is, however, the very model of what a cis-white male is supposed to be. He shuts up and listens. He knows his place in the intersectional hierarchy, and he boosts the voices of the marginalized. He speaks truth to power. His ex-wife even confiscates a drink from him the moment he starts to feel a little bit proud of himself, to remind us all that it's not really about him. His purpose in the story is to speak up for not even the common humanity, but for the voices of the marginalized, and when seen through an intersectional lens, the Sea Devils are the marginalized victims, and every action they take against their land-dwelling oppressors is seen as justified. And the proof of this is that not a single sympathetic character actually voices a moral opposition towards what the Sea Devils do towards the end of the episode. Yes, despite the fact that they take people's lives. Despite the fact that all three of the sympathetic characters, Barclay, his ex-wife, his daughter, are either made to watch someone be unalived in front of them, or are close to being unalived themselves as a direct result of the ensuing plastic apocalypse that the Sea Devils wrought on humanity as little more than petty revenge. It would be in character for any one of these individuals to resent what was done to humanity, and to resent every last Sea Devil because of it. But they don't, because the writers want us to see through them that the Sea Devils are morally justified, because, once again, say it with me, they represent the marginalized. And if you want to know who the marginalized people are, it's the people who are put on television, in movies, in adverts, who are given jobs just for being marginalized. And just to remind us that Barclay is doing the right thing, there is a tender scene beforehand where he's sleeping on the sofa in his own hotel room, as close as it gets to a literal cuck chair, and the daughter comes and says that she's proud of him. And then Barclay says to the daughter that they're moving you into a safe house tomorrow, to which she replies, "I'd rather stay here with you." And this is a direct quote, "The whole world's changing." This subtly reinforces to the audience that the whole world's changing. And then Barclay says maybe it needed to, maybe it's for the best. Thus further moralizing on the side of the sea monsters that would gladly kill millions of us. I know this is before the Sea Devils rain plastic death upon humanity, but no one's minds are actually changed as a result of this. And shortly before the Sea Devils exact their revenge upon humanity, there is another negotiation scene, this one even more one-sided than the last, in which the Sea Devils demand sovereignty of the entire oceans and the skies above them, 2/3 of the planet, cutting off the humanity in one continent from that of another. Actually, given the current state of immigration, that might not be so bad. Wait, I haven't thought this through. Do I like the Sea Devils now? But seriously, if every sea border had to close overnight, then the result would be millions, if not billions, of deaths from starvation and failing infrastructure. Even though we wouldn't have to worry about immigration anymore, the very thing that immigration is actually making a bigger problem is that we're only 60% self-sufficient for food, so 40% of the country would either starve or, maybe there'd be rationing, but the more likely result is armed struggle for the limited supply of food. The negotiation concludes with Salt tricking Barclay into saying that cleaning up the oceans is humanity's greatest desire, and then summoning all of the plastic in the oceans to rain down upon the land around the world. Which the Sea Devils clearly wanted to do that anyway, and if they had the power to do this all along, I don't think they were waiting for humanity's permission. They were just gonna do it. And if they had the power to do that, they clearly have some really advanced technology that is basically magic. It's basically telekinesis. They can make millions of tons of rubbish just do whatever they want. They can clearly distinguish it from the non-rubbish natural parts of the ocean and direct its direction. If they can do all that, then why are they complaining about being caught in fishing nets and having to listen to the noise from boats? It's like, are they dumb animals or are they a civilization many times more advanced than our own? The show seems to want to have it both ways. For some reason, everyone rushes out of the meeting room when this happens to, I don't know, stare out the windows, leaving only 3 unit staff members to confront Salt about this and tell her to stop. To which she smugly responds,
"We are cleaning up your mess."
As millions of people are unalived by falling debris. And even while the ex-wife and daughter are panicking, Barclay calmly reassures them that they're cleaning up the ocean. His exact words, They're cleaning up the ocean, the plastic, the pollution, all of it. They're giving it back. Barclay doesn't even regret having signed off on this on behalf of 8 billion humans who probably would have had something to say about it. And the news coverage the next day seems oddly focused on trivialities such as the shipwreck of the Titanic being thrown out of the ocean all the way to its original intended destination of New York, no doubt killing people that, were unlucky to be under it, but, they had it coming because they threw a plastic bag in the ocean. Fucking dumb. Oh, and then there's another negotiation scene after that. This show is just negotiationception. We heard you like negotiations in your negotiations, so you can negotiate while you negotiate. And, minor correction here, the part where the Sea Devils demand sovereignty actually occurs in this, the third negotiation. In my defense, they do kind of blur together, and, another little point to make here is that there is one vaguely sympathetic African leader who does raise the point about how my people are going to starve because of this. And then just the weirdest thing happens, but I can only describe it as this. Salt proves that she's more marginalized, that the Sea Devils are more marginalized than all the starving Africans by doing a gender fluid and transforming into a man. A seaman, if you will. Humanity is begging for peace at this point, while Salt is complaining about, of all things, the architecture of this meeting room, and the episode concludes with her demanding that Barclay meet her next time at the bottom of the sea. Find out next time if he somehow negotiates peace, but it's made obvious that's not going to happen by, of all things, the title of the show. I'll leave you with this comment by serialized user Slib7 about the episode in question. Love when it's clear the Doctor is staying out of something because they think the force against humanity is right. 27 likes. And if you look through the rest of these comments, you'll see the main thing people find wrong with this episode is a problematic relationship with one of the minor characters. No, not a minor character, just, you get what I mean. And with that, I'm going to drink myself to sleep before I watch the next episode. Good night. Hate with both hearts this time. You've earned it.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness.